Is homeschooling the answer? Stick around to hear what I have to say about that. Hi, I'm Rebecca with the Parent Teacher Bridge, where you can find the ideas and resources you need to empower you to be your child's most influential teacher. Today I'm talking about the topic of homeschooling. We know it's gained popularity in recent years. So let's talk about the question, is homeschooling the answer? Chances are, if you have had any sort of disappointment in your child's education experience, you might have considered homeschooling at some point in time. Maybe it was just a passing thought and you were like, no way am I going to do that. Or maybe it's something that's come back to your mind over and over. So, whatever the reason is, let's dig in. Before we begin, make sure you click like and subscribe so you can be notified each time I upload a video for your child's education. Let's get started. Well, is homeschooling the answer? The answer to what? Well, everybody has something different that they are looking for. They have different goals. So let's go through a few of these. If you're looking for freedom in what your child is taught and how your child is taught, then homeschooling's the answer. If you're looking to have more time with your child and more time that your children have together, then homeschooling is the answer. If you are looking to be free from the school calendar, as in days you have off, snow days, etc., then homeschooling is the answer. If you are looking for ways in which to help your child in academic or social areas where your child has struggled in school, then homeschooling is the answer. If you are looking for ways to teach your child during the day using everyday real-world tasks, then homeschooling is the answer. If you are looking for ways for your child to try skills directly related to the workforce in the real world, then homeschooling is the answer. You can nurture those skills and talents that your child has for one day entering the workforce. Now let's talk about, when is homeschooling not the answer? First of all, homeschooling is not the answer if you don't enjoy being around your children. And it's weird to have to say this, but I get the vibe that a lot of people don't like being around their children. I understand that every parent needs a break from time to time, and it can be a crazy life having a bunch of children around you. But let's remember, we chose to have children. Most of us chose the amount of children, whether we have big family, small family. And why, I must ask, do you not enjoy being around your children? Again, I'm not against taking breaks, but I've actually heard parents say, I would kill myself if I had to homeschool. And it's kind of sad and strange, and I can't help but think they have an idea of homeschool in their mind, and they think it has to be a certain way. It's sort of like somebody thinking every teacher must wear Apple earrings and a denim jumper, and we know that's not true. Homeschooling is not the answer if you find your worth or your child's worth in the whole school culture. If you are in love with the whole school culture, and that may involve certain extracurricular activities and school pride and all of those kinds of things, then homeschooling probably isn't for you. Now, we know that in different areas around the country, homeschooling is more popular than other areas. But I have friends whose children play on sports teams that are private sports teams. My own son is in a choir that is just for homeschool students. And there are still some homeschool students out there who sign up to play sports with their local public school. But if you are in love with the whole school culture and, being popular and class president and all these various things like that, then homeschooling probably isn't for you. Homeschooling is not the answer if you refuse to learn alongside your child. I was trying to encourage a parent recently in the area of math. I suggested a certain curriculum where I thought that the lessons were very easily and clearly explained. It was a great option for training your child to even kind of teach themselves and go at their own pace. And the parent absolutely refused. And she's like, no, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. I've already given this a try for 2 years. It's not going to work. And, ultimately I had to let her go her own way. And I said, well, I don't know your background and the story behind what is going on. So best wishes. But I was thinking, wow, could you have more of an I can't attitude than that? Yeah, sometimes when the material gets more difficult, you have to sit down and learn alongside your child. But keep in mind, you get to choose that curriculum. You get to choose an online course if need be. And if you're learning alongside your child every year, then it doesn't matter when it gets a little bit more and more complicated because you'll be learning too. Homeschooling is also not the answer if you really love the culture of a private school and you have the funds to send your child there and you absolutely love everything it stands for. You agree with the way the teachers are doing things, the homework, the textbooks, the curriculum, you know the teachers personally, and you have a high level of trust, then homeschooling is probably not for you. Homeschooling is probably not the answer without a support network. Again, I've talked about parents needing to take breaks from their children sometimes. That's fine and that's normal. But having a support network, that may mean a spouse that's supportive of you, that may mean grandparents are close by and they can help out from time to time with some of the activities that you do or helping you take a break. This is an area where I think that local churches can do a bunch to help out their community, is to offer some support, whether that be just a time where moms can get out and visit and have some uplifting time together, or whether that be, members from the church coming together and holding different homeschool classes. It helps to have a support network when you know that whatever hard thing comes your way during the day, that you're not the only one going through that. There's other people going through that and they have advice on how you can get by. Homeschooling is not the answer if you aren't willing to step it up and volunteer to be involved in some activities you may want for your child. Early on when my son was younger, my oldest son, I started a kindergarten co-op, and what we did was each of us parents, we volunteered to host the co-op in our house every week. So I didn't have it in my house every single week. So that was good. But we gave of our time, we gave of our resources to do that. Another thing that I've done before is to organize summer meetup events or even hold a little Christmas caroling group. When you are homeschooling your child, you don't have a school doing all of those things for you. So you might want to find something you're strong in and volunteer that, or help support another parent who does have a particular talent in those areas. And homeschooling is not the answer, at least for now, if you can't come to some agreement with your child's other parent. And I know there's many split families that have to tackle this issue where maybe an ex-spouse doesn't believe that homeschooling is the best thing. And I'm all for settling things amicably, but I'm also for educating parents on what really is offered to their child in public school versus homeschooling, and just the level of customization that they can get in homeschooling and the amount of stress they can have taken away from homeschooling. I'm talking about the child's stress level, but also it can affect the grown-up stress level as long as they're not getting too crazy with things. When I homeschool, I get to choose, do I give my child tests every week or not? When do I decide to give the test? I don't have to do tests every day of the week. mean, these are things that when your child is enrolled in school, you have no choice over, and you just have to make it. And those things can be quite stressful. But at least for now, if you can't get a spouse or ex spouse to agree with you, then homeschooling is probably not the answer. But feel free to encourage that other parent and help them learn what homeschooling really is, because most of the time when I find someone is against homeschooling, it's they want to put homeschooling in a certain box, and it just can't be done that way. It's so personal to each and every family, and that's why it looks so differently each time. Okay, so if you're still with me, give me some of your comments below. What do you think about some of this? Do you agree? Do you not agree? Tell me why. Are you a new homeschooler? Are you thinking about it? Are you a veteran homeschooler? Leave a comment down below. But if you are considering homeschooling, let's think about a few things before you do. First thing is, don't expect perfection. You are a parent. Homeschooling is like parenting because you've been teaching your child all this time anyway since they were born. So there will be good days, there will be bad days, there will be mountains, there will be valleys. And what you have to stick through and consider is not to give up, because anything worthwhile takes hard work. Now, you are the teacher and principal all rolled into one. You must stop comparing yourself with other people. Do what you need to do to keep everything legal within your state. And I recommend that you also follow what goes on in your state legislatures, as those things can change and requirements can change. You can join HSLDA, and that will help you find out what's kind of going on in the news regarding homeschooling and helping you stay legal and being wise about your decisions in homeschooling. Each state does things a little bit differently. Your situation is different, your home is different, your children are different, and homeschooling is going to look different for everyone else. The biggest mistake that most people fall into is they try to make it look like public school at home. And it's just really, really different. You can have customization at home, even if you have multiple children, because most of you out there, I'm sure, do not have 20 or 25 children at home. The ways in which a teacher gives assignments to help check to see what a student knows or doesn't know, you may not even need to give a worksheet or an assignment for that. You just have conversation with your child and know, do they know this? Do they not know this? What do I need to change about how I'm teaching them? It's just different. So don't try to put that pressure on yourself of imitating a school day at home. And another thing to consider is, what type of person are you trying to raise? What do you want your product to look like? Obviously, I believe in free will, and you can do all the right things and still be disappointed in decisions that your child makes. But when you are homeschooling and you're choosing curriculum and you're choosing how to do your day, consider what type of person you are wanting to raise. What will their values be? What will their work ethic be? And all of that adds into being part of who they are and what their education and character education has been. The last thing is to consider what are the career options for your child. Instead of getting so fixed into, if my child doesn't go to college, they will never have a good job. Consider, what is a good job. A lot of people change jobs anyway. A lot of people have gone to college and gotten in debt and never did anything with their degree. So please be aware of career options. We know that some jobs you have to go to college, but just be aware of those options. Take your child on a field trip, have them talk to someone else who's doing that career and find out what are the pros and cons? How did they get to where they are? What kind of education do they need to get there? I mean, I recently talked to someone who had advice for homeschooling a high schooler, and their advice was, before you choose their classes and how you're going to do things through ninth grade, see what career options they're looking at or what the graduation requirements are, and to work backwards starting in ninth grade, knowing where you need them to be at the end of 12th grade, and just to plan things backwards. Now, if you're sharing your homeschooling experience or interest with others, especially online where people don't know how to behave themselves, here are a few things you might run into. Number one, the ignorant commenter. Now, when you come across an ignorant commenter, you can almost guarantee that they don't know very many homeschoolers, nor have they ever really truly tried to homeschool. By the way, if someone was at home with their child during the pandemic when teachers were scrambling for how to do things online, that wasn't really homeschooling because that's still teachers being in charge and schools choosing the curriculum and all of that. So sometimes you come across people and they'll say, okay, there's no way I would homeschool. Homeschooling is not for me. Now, I didn't call these people stupid. I called them ignorant. They just don't really know the level of freedom that homeschoolers can have in building that education around each child and their strengths and weaknesses. So, a lot of people out there just don't have an idea of what homeschooling is like, how it can be so customized, and they do have an idea of what they think it is, and they can't get away from that idea. And so they're going to make judgments based on that idea. You just have to learn to let it roll off your shoulders. And some of them may find out a little bit more over time as they see you sharing and talking about things. You know, homeschooling is a hidden world. I had a couple of friends in college who had been homeschooled. Um, I didn't know very many people growing up who were homeschooled. And until I actually quit my teaching job to stay at home with my son to homeschool him, I didn't really know much about it. I didn't know that many homeschoolers. It took me having to stay at home and actually be in my community and meeting up with people before I actually knew. It's a hidden world. You don't have a brick and mortar school that says, this is the homeschool community. No, they may meet at the library, they may meet at the park. And when they do, they're meeting at those places while other people are at work. So they may not really know what's going on. We have a lot of homeschoolers where I live, and still sometimes it can be hard when you go to a church or another social circle that you have to find other people who homeschool. Another thing you will run into sometimes is a double standard commenter, and they want to apply things to homeschoolers that they would never consider doing with other children who go to private school or public school. They may even try to quiz your child, they may question your teaching, and how dare they? I mean, are they really assuming that every school out there has 100% great teachers? We know that's not true. I taught in school, my brother taught in school, my parents taught in school, and they will all tell you that at their school they can probably tell you by name who are the teachers who were really teaching every day and doing their best work, and who were the teachers who were just getting by. They were just there to collect a paycheck and be off for the summer. So you will run into a double standard commenter that tries to quiz your child or question your ability to teach your child. You just have to let that slide and maybe even ask them a rhetorical question in return, because I know they're not getting those questions asked of the children who are in public school. Okay, this last one hits close to home. It's the offended teacher commenter. Okay, I love teachers. School was a second home to me growing up. My dad was a well known teacher in our small county back home. My mom was a teacher's aide at the same elementary school. And I have so many fond memories of growing up, spending extra time at the school building and working. Okay. I don't want to try to offend teachers if I say anything against some of the things that go on in public school. It is not meant to say all teachers are bad, all teachers are evil, not at all. But if they're an honest teacher, they will recognize that the school doesn't give truly a customized education for each child. You have a class full of kids, you have your high performers, you have your low performers. And then you got some kids in the middle, and teachers end up trying to teach mainly to the kids in the middle. So you have some kids falling through the cracks and other kids who are bored. A reflection on the system is not necessarily a reflection on you as the teacher. I've been in the teacher's lounge before. I hear teachers complaining about their principal or the school and how things are done, or even their superintendent or the school board. So, why get defensive when a homeschooler points out those inadequacies or faults? Let me read you something from one of my recent blog posts, okay? It's just going to be easier to read the words that I've already written. There are teachers out there who call their career their calling. They are told in numerous in services and meetings that they are the best thing that ever happened in the child's life. I've sat in meetings and pep talks similar to this. Parents are many times painted in a light where they're on the opposite side, when it should be that they all have a working relationship and a respect for one another. Are there children who come from bad home lives that are in school? Absolutely. Are there kids who look forward to going to school because their home life is so bad? Absolutely. But we can't assume that of all parents and all families. In the schools and classrooms where I see that trust and relationship between the parents and the teachers, all parties, it can be a beautiful thing, even if the parent still doesn't have the option of choosing a curriculum like a homeschool parent would. And when that relationship happens, you must acknowledge, especially if you are that proud and offended teacher, that that does not happen every year for every child. Things change all the time. Kids get different teachers, they get rezoned and sent to different schools. And just because you've had a good experience doesn't mean everyone else will. And it's not a guarantee that you will either the next year. Just recognize and own the fact that most of the time parents don't get to choose their child's teacher. And the child's teacher does not get to choose curriculum, nor the classmates of that child. So there are limitations within the school system. And if you are a teacher, yeah, that's your job. You've got to make the most of the situation. It is what it is. But parents, you do have a choice if you want to take your child out. So to the teachers, I would say don't take offense when a parent needs to do what they need to do to get the best situation for their child. It's a parent's right to make that choice. And you as a teacher, you only have the influence over what happens in that classroom. You can't control the other teacher down the hall or that other school in the school system. So don't make judgments for those if a parent is unhappy with their situation. Now, let's reflect a little bit on some people who were homeschooled growing up and what a difference they made. There are lots of people in history who were famous inventors, leaders of countries, change makers, in other words, change for the better, who had been homeschooled at one point in time where the traditional school model just did not work out for them. We need to look back and recognize that and say, maybe my child needs a situation like that too in order to thrive. Schools haven't always been the way that they are today, and families still found a way to manage. I encourage you to do some research into what schools used to be like. How did people manage if they didn't have the same kind of education that we have today? And just ask yourself, do you think that the kids are doing better today with the current education situation or not? Let's look into that. In the end, though, and I know some homeschoolers are passionate about this, but in the end, I don't see everyone moving to homeschool. We're not all going to agree on that. So I wholeheartedly support what people may do to try to make their schools a better place through voting on the school board, going to school board meetings, shedding a light on what is taught in a certain curriculum, or what goes on during the school day, parents, you've got to be involved. You've got to go to meetings. You've got to sit in, volunteer at the school. And being a substitute teacher is one of the fastest ways to find out the culture of a school and what is really going on. So you might want to consider that, even if you just do it for a certain time period. And lastly, we do have a choice. Homeschooling used to be illegal, but we do have a choice in this country. You can choose right now to homeschool your child, and there's never, ever been a time in history with so many resources at your fingertips to do things in a way that will be convenient and useful to you. You can choose to send your child to a private school, and you may say, I can't. But I've known many of those parents who send their children to private school, and they weren't all rich. They just made different choices on how to spend their money. And that's really what it boils down to. Homeschooling can be a sacrifice. Even though I know many people who homeschool and still work a job, it's still a sacrifice of your time and resources, just like sending your kids to a private school is a sacrifice as well. But parents who send their children to public school can sacrifice too. They sacrifice time with their children. Sometimes they sacrifice their evenings. If their evenings are determined by the amount of homework, then that's a sacrifice. Now, did I leave anything out? Leave a comment below. These are just a few thoughts that I had when I wrote a blog post. These are just a few thoughts that I had recently when I wrote one of my blog posts. Now, you can go to theparentteacherbridge.com and find different blog posts that pretty much match up to my YouTube videos if you'd rather read than watch a video. Do you have questions? You can email me, Rebecca at theparentteacherbridge.com. And if you are new to homeschooling, you might consider my survival guide for the new homeschool family. I'll leave a link in the description below. If your child is struggling to read, check out my 5 quick tips to immediately improve your struggling reader. If you get either of these two, you will be on my email list and you'll have the option for different discounts when I release my various courses. I have one reading course that's already out, one more in the works, and I'm planning on releasing a homeschooling course and hopefully something related to math later on this year. So keep an eye out for that. Don't forget to click like and subscribe. And remember, you are your child's most influential teacher.